Hello, my liege. So, you want to know what news has been happening across the Empire this season? Well, an awful lot, which means that lots of people haven't quite kept track of it all. The best way to do so is to ask me and Anvil and to buy this. But, just in case you don't manage it, I'm going to give you a quick summary of all of the winds that have been blowing across our fair land. So first of all, I have all sorts of exciting gossip, but unfortunately I don't have time to go into that now. That's all stuff that happened at the last summit. Moving on to military matters and barbarian affairs, awful lot of stuff against the Grendel. The raid against them was a great success. 150 ship captains, 125 military units, raiding them, smashing their fort, their amphitheatre, freeing lots of slaves. Mostly orcs, but, well, they're apparently people too. They rose up to help us against the Grendel, which was very exciting. Rhiannos sent lots of aid, of course, but also there seems to be some sort of hints that maybe Ira Hurrah, maybe some sort of freedom, false virtue sort of stuff's going on. All seems a bit dangerous, if you ask me. Anyone who brought back weapons from that raid should get them looked at by a priest. Meanwhile, the Grendel Armada outside Sarvos has moved on. They've moved to attack Feroz. So we didn't pay them the money that they wanted, which means that they've sailed from Sarvos over to the Brass Coast and are now raiding that, burning up the area, conquering the Khazar Straits and Oransari. Bad news for the Freeborn. Speaking of the Grendel, their pirates of Attar prowl the bay, trying to stop all of our shipping. All fleets from Tazato, Sarvos, the Brass Coast, Highguard and Urizen will again suffer a penalty to any trade they do this coming season, which isn't good at all. We do have an opportunity to attack them. All of the details of it are in here. It's quite a long one, lots of different options. The key thing is that if it's successful, it will damage the fleets that take part. This is more all-out and more conclusive and decisive assault than the previous two seasons. But if it happened, well, it would be a great blow against the Grendel. Speak to the Imperial Fleet Master, and of course, read the relevant information. Moving on from the Grendel, the Druge. They've been chased out of Morrow into Zenith by the Citadel Guard, the League, Varushka. They pushed on through, with help from Eleonaris, thanks of course to the Dornish. The raid into Zenith, there are a whole load of different raids going in to try to free slaves. Those worked very well. Many of those have now rejoined their Imperial armies. But the Druge are doing dark rituals on the Black Plateau in Spiral, cursing it with potent spring magic. There is a conjunction this season that might enable us to find out precisely what they've been cursing us with, which could be very useful. Ossium, where Dawn gloriously crossed our golden bridge, and Varushka also helped. And also the Fool are now helping. That's gone very well, despite the terrible weather, the poisonous beasts, the horrible miasmas. Druge. The last major Druge force was being pursued relentlessly by the Thule, who were originally a bit slow militaristically, but suddenly they sprinted off away from the forces. But then the Druge were attacked and wiped out by another Druge force. The Thule seemed very annoyed. They seemed to have wanted to try to steal something from them. Typical orcs all fighting amongst each other. The fight against the Valorn continues very well. The independent captains of Navarre, Dawn and Highguard all united in Brokeliad in order to stop the awakened Valorn spreading. But the fight isn't over yet. It seems to be getting stronger and harder to deal. Again, all the details are in here. There's all sorts of different options. We could get Tharim to eat more bits of our herbs and forest, this time from Highguard, the Brass Coast and the League. Zakalwe has sent the Rod and Shield Grandmaster help to find the best path, which would get armies there if we want to use armies to stop it. And also there are conjunctions on the Saturday evening that could be useful. Woods that fell Fenny have disappeared from Hassania, possibly into the Valorn Heart, which isn't good. The Jotun up in the north. Yes, so they're gathering in the Affhaven on the border with Bregus Land, which means, of course, that pushing into the Affhaven to deal with the Valorn there is pretty much impossible. We'd need to reconquer West Ranging, which we've been driven out of quite heavily this season, and even start. The Lysambrian Jotun, a bit further south, they've been going down into the Brass Coast. They opened up some sort of burial mound there during the last summit. But this time their Lysambrian armies, 3 Lysambrian Jotun armies there, clashed with 2 Imperial armies, and it was a great victory for the Imperials, who managed to hold them off and stop their advance. They do still hold Anduziase? Freeborn, strange names. In the north, the Winter Mark and the Freeborn pushed into Atalak, reclaiming it from the Jotun as agreed at the summit last summit. Then they pushed through into Stark. Much more difficult. The Jotun were heavily holding a gap between 2 lakes. They had to wait until one of the lakes froze over and then charge through the frozen bits. All very dramatic, and then the lake ice cracked and the strange seal folk came up to rescue people and all sorts of exciting things. Conquering Stark is going to be difficult. The Jotun have built some sort of fortification in the north there. Finally, the Jotun is sending a delegation to speak to Wintermark mediators and observe the Imperial Orc Night of Worth on Saturday evening. So that's something to look out to if you want to raise any beef with the Jotun. All of the conjunctions and that sort of thing are all in the timetable at the back, and visitors from foreign delegations and so on are all in the back of my guide. I'm not going to go through all of those. We'll briefly discuss the battle options. So as always, the generals choose between several options. This time, all of these options could be done on Saturday or Sunday. So the generals just have to pick which 2 we want to do, which day we want to do each one, and which nations go on which one of them. So there's an attack into Sermasuak, an area that's seen a lot of Jotun Thrall activity this past 3 months. There's attack into Liathaven to help us out in West Riding. It's a place that we often seem to end up fighting the Jotun. There's attack into Feroz in order to take out some Grendel heavy infantry before they push into the rest of the Freeborn. And there's an attack into Spiral. As always, attacking onto the Black Plateau is not pleasant. Make sure if you're going that you've either got the heroic reserves to overcome any miasmas yourself, or you're Cambion, or you've been anointed, or you have some other sort of exciting magic item or mitigating effect. So, news from across the Empire. Big one, any character that's got a congregation can choose to tell them to arm up. You can then exchange it for a military unit with the same number of upgrades for free. This is a very limited one-time special offer, but very exciting if you've got bored of being a priest. Meanwhile, Frederick de Sarvos, speaking of priestly matters, has been called for inquisition. He gave us designs for a number of commissions of universities. The Senate hasn't actually chosen to carry any of them out yet, but he's now refusing to carry it out until the Inquisition's all resolved. So it's quite possible the Senate won't be able to commission any of them this summit. Perhaps late in the day. He's coming for Inquisition at 4 PM on Saturday. Let's go through the nations. The Dornish. Our big thing, our news, is the prisoners that the Druge captured out in Dawnguard. We have an opportunity to go and rescue them. They're threatened that if any army attacks a Druge territory, 10 Dornish prisoners will be executed, and all of the children will be put to work in the mines, which isn't good. Ira Hara, speaking of things that aren't good, Spring Eternal of freedom cultists, he has managed to arrange an entire thing where if we sent a whole load of military units, we might be able to free the Dornish children, free a large number of the slaves, free the orcs that they've got as slaves, who could then work as sort of fifth columnists. All sorts of exciting things. There's conjunctions that might be able to help with this. All sorts of stuff, all detailed in here. Meanwhile, in Werewater, where I'm from, we've all been talking about Edric de Gauvain. Edric de Gauvain. It's just such a catchy name. Edric de Gauvain. All very exciting. No one quite knows why, though. Presumably some sort of strange curse. Please stop. For more Dornish affairs, see the Druge and Ossim also below. I'll get into that in a minute. Brass Coast, mainly the news is that you're being attacked from 2 directions. Not good season for you. And of course, there's the possibility to strike back against the pirates. All of those are things that you're quite interested in, I imagine. Highborn. Your grey pilgrims are walking all over the trods. They're telling all the congregations to stop being so congregation-y and to focus on improving their virtue. Thanks for that. What we needed was less Leo washing about. They are interested. Currently, they're only working on humans. They're sort of thinking, should we be looking at converting all living beings? Should we be working on converting the Thule, who are situated inside the Empire? Even the Thule going over the trods into Thule territory. Some sort of mandate from the Highguard National Assembly would help steer that. The General Assembly and the Assembly of the Nine could also do mandates supporting the Grey Pilgrims, in which case then they'd get some sort of power over the Grey Pilgrims' mission. Could be an interesting one, the grappling for power between the Highborn Assembly and the others. Imperial Orcs, they were ready to welcome the survivors of the whole Dovetrade raid, but unfortunately the Senate didn't give any help for those survivors to get up to Scarsin, so they've all got lost across the Empire. They're settling into banditry and causing all sorts of problem. Again, there's a lovely thing here, lots of details on how we can help them across the Empire. The League, a couple of little things. There's a rank 2 military unit, formerly commanded by Andrea von Holberg, General of the Tower Jacks, the Revelry. They're visiting on Saturday to look for a new patron, reporting to your egregore first. So if you're looking for a better military unit, why not speak to them? Meanwhile, over in Temeshwar, your big idolatrous statue of Yanon has been smashed. So stop your idolatry. It's possibly quite illegal, its destruction, but they're probably going to claim some sort of vigilance defence, I imagine. It was inspired by the Assembly of Nine's declarations that idolatry is bad, which really shouldn't be something you have to declare. Idolatry is bad. They'd like the Cardinal of Courage to publicly support them and identify further idolatrous constructions for them to smash up. That might well be illegal again. But illegal doesn't mean unvirtuous always. So, Marcher farmers. Marcher farmers can build dolmens for as long as the Rivers Run Red remains interdicted. So this is diversification. It costs you a throne. You get less money, but you do get mana crystals out of your farms. Very useful. There's also an exciting mandate about supporting Marcher, or possibly any armies that are resting in Marcher territory, which means that then they wouldn't cost any upkeep. That would be very useful. There's also a thing about you can encourage your military units and fleets to settle down and become farms. And also you've got an option to build a fortification in Gravenmarch in Bregasland, the last March territory that doesn't have a fortification, really. Oh, and the Sweet Root Bakery from Upwold, which is a rank 2 business, will be in the public bourse auction at 7 PM on Saturday night. So if you want to get a business, why not buy a bakery? Navarre. Most of your stuff is the stuff that's been covered already in the Valorn section, but also the Great Forest Orcs, who I know you're best buddies with, want to build an embassy in Therunin. It costs 50 werewood, 50 crowns to construct it. They'd rather have a Navarre or Highborn ambassador if it was built, and definitely no Dornish. I think they're still a bit annoyed of us at what we did in the Barrens. What a pity. The Urizen. They're grateful to the League for military aid, and they've got this lovely plan to build a nice military strategy library for the League. That would be very useful. And they're also very grateful to Highguard for their aid that they've given them. So they've got this plan to build massive statues of 3 Highborn soldiers with some sort of inspirational tomb at the base. They're less keen on Varushka for waking up the Black Plateau. Dum-de-dum-de-dum. Oh, and on Saturday evening at 8 PM, a young torchbearer who's discovered a bracelet with links to the Dornish exemplar Adilmar the Lion is going to be visiting the Urizen camp. It could be a very interesting bracelet to have a look at, to get some scrying and insight and that sort of thing. Find out some of our important history of our exemplars and a wonderful link between our two nations, old Adilmar. Also, your National Assembly could encourage the nation to fight to reclaim Zenith, or to accept that you don't have Zenith and for your refugees to settle down. So a chance for you to shape the future path of your nation. The Highborn Assembly could welcome the refugees from Zenith, the weakest ones, the children and injured, to Rykos as a way to show support for you. The Varushkans, they've got this big plan to buy all of their Imperial Bourse seats. They're offering large sums of money, but it is quite useful having them as Imperial Bourse seats and being auctioned off, thus getting us money every year. But it's an interesting option for the Senate to look at. There's also chances for you to build a mithril ministry, do a mandate, promoting mines and forests, which means it would be free for any Varushkan to change their resource to a mine or forest. In any territory, so you could use it to move into Ossium. There's bonus production for a season or a year if you do it with a good story. More resources to the Bourse auction. You could make a ministry for mines and forests, overseeing new settlers in Karsk. Belov and the Egregore have got details and conjunctions to investigate monstrous settlers as well. So that's good fun. Go out and root out some wolves and sovereigns. Good luck. Ossium, then. So Ossium was given by the Senate to Varushka rather than Dawn, despite our Golden Bridge being the way that we managed to conquer it. But oh well, you did do some good work as well. The Ketsov, which is probably the main reason they're quite Varushkan-y already, they're starting to embrace your life, and they're looking for ways to continue their livelihood of building fancy weapons. They'd like it to be fortified, or to have a barracks, which would help move the way to you being able to make a fourth army. They're looking to build a weapons trading exchange, either via you or via Thule. In order to open a fourth army, as well as building the barracks, we'd also need to find some way of dealing with the Sandfisher Orcs. We could give them Misery Cord in Holberg. It's currently League, but not really used much. These Great Sandfisher Orcs really like marshy ground and so on, so they'd settle there very nicely. It would increase the tax revenue of Holberg, which is always useful. We could give them a bit of Scarsind. It wouldn't really be particularly beneficial. It would get rid of them, but they like fishing, and Scarsind's a bit too mountainous for that. Or the Thule are willing to take them. If the Senate or the ambassador to the Thule agree. Do we want the Thule to be swelling even more? Who knows? The Crawling Depths is producing 14 mithril per season. We could double it, but it would cost large investment. The Dornish Troubadours are flocking to Ossium. There's a Dornish national mandate for getting them to look out for the Druj Miasma pillars, which would then help us remove this horrible fear effects all over the land. Or we could try converting Ossium to the Way. So this would be a Virtue Assembly or the General Assembly. The best way to do it would be promoting one specific virtue at first, and then see how that goes. In Wintermark, your Seal folk want to build a floating hall as a manor ministry, sort of as an ambassador post, the Suak mediator of the Huljulhul. Meanwhile, there's an opportunity to build a forge, a rune forge out of Runegrot in Harnmark. Costs lots of money, you have options. If the Imperial Orcs gave you the ruins of Gildenheim, you could move that over and save you some of the money. If we freed the Gildenheim runesmiths from the Fool, that would help your rune forge. Also, if you managed to get the Rime Hammer, then the people of Rhinegrot would do it for free. Speak to Brune Dunning if you want news about the Rime Hammer. And Barian, the Iron Duke, has offered aid if all of the Ice Walkers successfully challenge the Iron Duke. Foreign news! The Liberty Pack sanctions are costing awful lots of money. Axos, they've banned slavery, avoided civil war, going very nicely. Orcs are only second-class citizens, unfortunately. The Assembly of the Nine invited the priest to visit Anvil, but no reply. Iron Confederacy. Furious about the Liberty Pact. Also furious about that time last summit where Mordecai of Zephaniah's Lament went and killed a bunch of their Templars in order to let a dangerous criminal escape. Good lad, Mordecai. Cardinal of Vigilance has information on smugglers trading illegal liao to the Sorani from Feroz. And also the rebel group Dumon's Hand would still like to buy liao. It is legal if they're buying it inside the Empire. It's only cross-border trade that's illegal, I think. Check with a magistrate. Faradon, again, very cross about the sanctions that were put on them. They say that their slaves are either humans working out debts or only orcs, so they don't count as people. They count as people for the Liberty Pact. As a result, public auction metals are decreasing. Iridescent gloaming is rising. There's some smuggling via North Segura and Karaman. We could reduce the sanctions cost if we made a trade corridor by driving a path through the through the Jotun. That might be difficult. If the General Assembly made a statement saying that justice is not one of the 7 virtues, but doesn't hurt, then that might be good, particularly if it went with a greater majority. That would probably reduce the sanctions by 5 thrones. Does it, though? Thule. They've sanctioned us back. They're very cross about it all. Building a new road would remove the sanctions. They're sending a delegation, as I said already. They've got an awful lot of Imperial slaves and want Bourse materials to ransom them back. And they're tightening their grip on the regions they control inside Imperial territories, which isn't great. Oh, also they've captured a historical research team. Yeah, things are a bit rocky with the Thule. The spy network in Zark, that's been dismantled. Someone told them about it. Asavea, they've applied sanctions back. They're very cross. We could mitigate it by building idolatrous temples. Or giving apologies with a statement of support against the rebels. Yeah. Imperial captains can either fight for them or for the rebels. There's all sorts of other ways that you can support the rebels. Fleets can sell weapons to them and stuff. And we need to do something about all the buildings built by the Asavean architect. We could tell people to go wreck them. Or bar entry to them, or that sort of thing. But it is then going to cost money to repair them back up to working order. The Commonwealth. They've embraced the Liberty Pact. Visitors to Leerdam get 1 extra blade route. Everything's going great. Volkovar's giving extra artisans oil. Their tensions with Yarm are increasing about Lantir. A declaration of concord, giving them imperial law if they visit us, would bring sort of 10 thrones per season, but it would make Yarm very cross unless we did it to both. Speaking of Yarm, they've applied sanctions back on us. White seed's now more expensive. Trade with Vezek and Khazor's down. Rigi is still closed. If we did that declaration of concord saying any of them that visit us can learn imperial law, then they'd be giving us huge amounts of money, 60 thrones, but would make the Commonwealth cross unless we did it to both. So might as well just do it to both, if we're going to do it at all. Sarkophan Delves, they've outlawed slavery and bought more herbs to the public auction. Thank you very much. They've got lots of exciting plans to build things to trade herbs or white granite and werewoods. They've got an offer of 100 white granite for 500 thrones. We could give them various bits of land and then they'd give us various things. Ilium, diversification of businesses, whole loads of different stuff. Read the thing. But of course, if we gave them land, they might build heretical, idolatrous or heretical temples on them, which wouldn't be ideal. Sumar, they've opened Zima to the Empire, so it's now possible to go there on pilgrimage. Very exciting. They've embargoed all the slavers. Religious tension is still quite high. They've agreed not to change any doctrine or exemplars or paragons for a year, as long as we do the same. And then they're willing to discuss differences. We'll see how that goes. Finally, Eternals, Realms, Magical Affairs. So, the stars are missing over the Baron, Zenith, Holberg and Spiral. That's the Druge. Penumbral Veils hung over Octodov, Feroz, Temeshwar and Morrow. Only 1 enchanted castle this season. Well done, Susavari and Calavesa. Strange curse has made everyone in Werewater obsessed with the name Edric to go, what is it about that name? Edric. It's very satisfying somehow. Grimhold in Mikarova. Perushka, man. The home of the Vorzai was surrounded by a mysterious mist on the new moon after the winter summit. Speak to the Vorzai if you want them to be weird at you and not actually give you any answers, probably, knowing them. Conclave. Their grandmasters are soon getting less money in the fonts as the bequests are running dry. The merchants of the League have got some ideas for expanding your mana ministries, though. Or for building new mana ministries for the War Mage and the Bursa. Conclave. If it says that no Imperial magicians should ever use curses to slay Imperial citizens, then we'll be given a whole load of money. Well, the Silver Chalice will be given a whole load of money. Very exciting. We'll see if that happens. Knight. Archmage Elisithane of Urizen. Lashana is hosting a caucus forum between the Archmage, Imperial Consul and one friend, and a bunch of hero. Dreamsinger, a Herald of Lashana, is asking the High Bard to collect a new song, so speak to the High Bard. And Sir Dogua, he's gone a bit quiet, he's a bit sad because Richard of Holberg died. Day. Falerion's withdrawn their previous offers after being spurned by Conclave. More about that in the gossip section. Falerion's offered a parley at 11 PM on Friday for the Archmage and for all Urizeni, even the non-mages. Winter. Sorin will be sending an emissary to the Hall of Worlds 6:30 PM Friday. Kayla's gift is still available. Lots of details about that here. Spring. Our Halogen declines a public parley, but will take the logical next step. Lofear, who had enmity declared against them last season. Again, look at the gossip section. Lofear wants a parley with the Archmage of Spring at 8 PM on Friday. Catherine Canay, a parley at 2:30 on Saturday. Loads of Wintermark and the Archmage, and it's all very specific. Details here. Must bring a weapon. It's probably going to be a fight. Maraud's challenge for the Imperial Magicians to make great magic continues. It's being delayed until summer, the conclusion, rather than spring, because it turns out he was the one behind the ritual Lions of Phoenix Reach. Eleonaris notes that we summoned 24,000 of her Knights of Glory last season, and she'd like an idolatry statue built to say thank you. Adamant's Koboldi have finished constructing an indestructible fortification in Summerholm. Thanks, Adamant. Autumn. No parley with Ephesus, who doesn't like the Liberty Pact. Has got various plans for building ministries, Viz ministries. Would like us to make every boss seat Imperial. That would then boost the Autumn Regio. Boost the Regio. It would be better at doing Autumn, and we get more Autumn Regio across the Empire. Prospero wants the complete opposite. All the boss seats to be national for the same reward. Astavus is seeking Ambergelt. So before the throne of Astavus will now allow double quantities of Ambergelt, and the person who sends the most is going to get a cool military unit just for next season, and which only does defence, but really cool. And finally, there's a chance to play Prospero at Threadweaver, a card game, at the Autumn Equinox, but you learn Threadweaver this summit. Speak to Rodrigo von Mester in the League camp from about 10 PM on Friday.